So first question, let's just begin with where things stand right now. Obviously, we're kind of entering that fourth week here of protests. How would you describe Colombia right now?
Okay, Colombia is a country with a lot of challenges. It's a country like every country in the world is suffering because of the effects of this pandemic, the economic effects, the social effects, family effects, because we have lost more than 100,000 Colombians. So this is creating a kind of fear about the future, a kind of uncertainty. So many people lost their jobs. So that's why there is this clear sense of discomfort. So that's why we believe that we need to improve not only the quality of our government, but the quality of the relations between government and citizens. As you know, governments try to do the best. Sometimes we have mistakes, and we did a mistake because we present a bill, a tax reform that creates this mess. And the tax reform, it was not to increase taxes to all Colombians, it was to increase taxes to few Colombians, but in order to give aid, to give a kind of help to so many poor Colombians, at least during the next 18 months. But it was a bad explanation of the bill that created this unconfidence in the real purpose. And that's why we have all these protesters, and we have all these positions on the streets. And of course, they are adding so many other issues. They don't want to have any reforms about pensions, about labor, and we are not preparing that kind of reforms. But it seems to me that there is a lack of confidence, and we have to rebuild confidence in order to maintain the economic recovery, which is the first priority. We can have economic recovery, we are going to create jobs to all Colombians. So this is the situation, but it's a country with a lot of opportunities. It's a country with a lot of diversity, with a lot of very young and very smart people, and we are clear and confident that we are going to solve this situation.
You know, you kind of mentioned it a couple of times there, that trust between the people and the government. You know, it's been decades where there's always been some kind of discourse between the two. How do you feel the government can change that going forward in terms of providing some of the things they're asking for, like better health coverage, better education, things along those lines?
Thank you very much for your question. First, I believe that a process of creating confidence is something that needs that you are ready to have agreements and to be fully committed with your part in the agreement. So this is what governments have to do. We cannot make offers that we are not going to fulfill to citizens. In terms of health, we have been improving a lot our health system. I really believe that Colombia is one of the best health systems because we have coverage for 100% of the Colombian population, and almost 70% are subsidized by the state, which is very expensive, but we are still on this. And during the pandemic, we more than doubled the capacity of hospitals in order to provide emergency attention, in order to provide the unities for control. So we really believe that all this investment in the increasing of the capacity are helping to attend not only people who have COVID, but other patients in hospitals. And we are also committed with the increasing of the health population, the health services. It's technology, doctors, nurseries, whatever. So we are working on that. That's why we increased the health budget for this year. And this is something that it's going to happen again for the next year. And about education, this is one of the most important concerns for the youth. And I agree with that. And for many years, young people has been demanding for a free education, free tuition for the education. Unfortunately, it's also cost a lot of money, but In the last 3 years, President Duque have increased the education budget, and we have something like 60% of the increase in the last 3 years. So it means that this is for the first time, the first budget in the entire Colombian budget, education. And last week, we decided to offer a free tuition for public universities. All the public universities are going to provide free education for the youth who are in levels 1, 2, and 3 of income, of course, because we cannot afford to rich families if they don't need it. But for economic levels 1, 2, and 3, it's going to be a free education. And we have to improve in quality, we have to improve in everything. But what it's very positive is that we also have a private sector which is very productive, very diversified. Private sector is working with us in order to offer these part-time jobs for the young people. So this is something which is going to create new opportunities, because they are going to be studying universities and they are going to have also a part job in order to have some kind of income. So these are so many decisions that we have been postponing because it was a very slow pace. Now we decided to do a big move forward, and I hope that this is going to be helpful, but it's not enough. The environment, it's difficult, and we have to continue working to create this confidence.
Well, I mean, you made a lot of good points there. And I think one of the other things that came up throughout this was just the human rights, right? I mean, I know the United States government was calling upon that. There were obviously a number of deaths early on in this, and there are still people who say that the police force there in Colombia needs reform. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like your police force needs reform?
First of all, let me tell you that we are completely committed with the respect for human rights. We as a government, we as a nation, and of course, when you have a protest and when you have all these massive participation of people, sometimes there are some very few who have violent actions. So that's why our police is focused in prevention. But when there is violence, of course, they have to react. And I have to say, precisely today, you have a year of George Floyd death here in the United States. This is a very sad experience, and we have had some like George Floyd. So that's why we believe that we have to send a clear message to our public forces and to the police and to the military. There is no chance to accept any kind of violence, any kind of disproportional use of force, and of course, any kind of a violation of human rights. So that's why we have been working very close also with the general prosecutor, with the general attorney's office, every institutions in order to investigate any single case. There is no chance to have one case in impunity. So we need to have the forces that have the capacity to prevent and to control, but they also know that they have to be very committed with human rights. And yes, we believe that it means that we also have to make some reform in the police as an institution, mainly in the selection of police, what kind of training, what kind of psychological preparation they have in order to be a patient, in order to be under control when they are being affected, when they are being threatened. But yes, we are working in this police reform, and the own police, the general director of the police, they accept that this is something they need, because we are clear that if we have legitimate institutions, this is going to be the best for the future of our democracy.
For sure. I mean, that's a great point. And it's very interesting you compared it to George Floyd, because in many cases, that's what people want to see is justice. And in that situation is what people here in America were upset about, is receiving justice. In regards to, lastly, ending these protests, I know this week you've begun to sit down again with the National Strike Committee. Where do things currently stand, and do you see an end to the protests anytime soon?
Yes, this national strike group they have some positions which are very hard, very radical. They said that a government must be ready to give assistance like one minimum wage to 30 million Colombians, which is almost impossible because there is no state that can afford this. But those kind of requirements have to be analyzed, have to be discussed. There are some others which are possible to accept, and that's why they have been working. Last night they were until very late. Yesterday it was also the same. We are in a process to move forward. President asked them to the negotiators that they have to move forward in order to have this clear signal from the national table of strike to ask protesters, please don't block anymore the Colombian roads, because through these blockings, they are affecting the human rights of so many citizens. They affect the right to have food, the right to have medicines, the right to have mobilization. We have 2 children who were almost killed in the roads because they don't leave ambulances the possibility to move to the hospital. So this is something which is unacceptable. We believe that protesters have their own rights to express their disagreement, to express their uncomfort, but they also have to be respectful of others' rights and human rights. So we need that this strike table send a clear message that they are against this blockade of the roads because they are affecting everybody. And hopefully this is going to continue moving forward this week. I know President Duque has been yesterday and last night following directly with all the team in order to move forward again.
All right. And lastly, what do you want to say to Colombians living here in America who are seeing things at home? What do you want to say to them about the nation going forward?
Okay, I have to say, Americans, that Colombia is still their country, that we all have to represent our country with very high standards of respect for the law in this country because they are living here, respect for others, with a commitment to work hard. Colombians are a very hard-working people, and of course, to say Colombians, this is a nation that receives so many of them. You have to contribute to make America more prosper, more equal, more developed. And we really believe that the relationship between the United States and America has been a very positive relation. We are the main ally from the United States in Latin America. We are 2 countries that share values of freedom, values of democracy, values of free enterprises. We believe very much in entrepreneurship as the best way to create new economic opportunities and new jobs for the youth. So this is something that Colombians who live in Colombia and Colombians who live abroad Colombia must fulfill, and to be grateful with a country that opened their doors for them, and so many of them are raising their families here. So this is something that we want to strengthen the bilateral relation based in values and based in the common goal to have prosperity and better inclusion. For us in Colombia, social inclusion is the main priority. We have had a country with a lot of poverty. Of course, during the last 20 years, we have been reducing the level of poverty, but we lost all these efforts in only 1 year because of the COVID. We went back in the levels of poor people in Colombia. The size of the middle income has reduced because of COVID. So that's why I mentioned at the beginning, for us, it's a real priority to recover all this economy, to create jobs and to provide conditions to the inclusion, real inclusion of Colombians. This is not only about how much aid can we give to help families. This is about how many jobs can we create to give stable income to families and as a human being in Colombia.
And lastly, is there anything else you want to add? Anything that we didn't touch upon that you feel is important to mention?
No, I really believe that we see that the future is very challenging for everybody in the world. We are seeing that there are some that there is some discomfort in every country, as I mentioned before. But we have to maintain a clear goal for values, for freedom. This is so important. We see that there are so many democracies in the entire world that are suffering because of different reasons. We cannot lose the goal. The goal is to have prosperity. The goal is to have freedom. The goal is to have a real democracy. So that's why we are very focused on the legitimacy of institutions. Institutions cannot fail to citizens. And we, as a citizens, we are part of the nation. So everybody has part of the responsibility. State institutions has a big responsibility, but also citizens. It's important to have citizens that want to participate, that want to follow up what public servants are doing, but citizens who are helping also to public servants in order to do better for the good of everybody. So we are going to have, excuse me, in the next weeks or months, some developments in the entire world. Hopefully those are going to be very positive. We are looking for more vaccines for Colombia. President Duque has shown this very clear commitment and solidarity with a country that lost democracy, which is Venezuela. And that's why we in Colombia, we are not a very rich country, but we in Colombia, we opened the door for 2 million Venezuelans. You have trouble here in the United States with people from the Golden Triangle, and you have received something like 100,000 migrants. We received 2 million migrants. So we are working in order to provide jobs, to provide food, to provide housing, and to provide vaccines right now to all these migrants. So for us, it's so important to maintain this close relation with the United States and to have some support in order to give these conditions to 2 million Venezuelans in our country. And we believe that the future means more solidarity in order to have more prosperity for all.
All right. Thank you so much, Madam Vice President. I really appreciate your time this morning, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your trip here in the United States.
Thank you very much. I also appreciate this time with you. Thank you.
Thank you.